Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. So you've started a market garden / farm, or you're starting a farm and you're trying to decide how to make a farm business work, how to make it grow, if you should make it grow. You get the idea. You're in the early phases of this farming adventure and you're trying to understand where to put your time and money. So let's do it. This video was born from a question on our Patreon page that I really liked because I see a lot of information out there about how to start a farm, but not a ton about what to do next. So hopefully this idea will fill in that void. It's what I'm good at. Well, that's a pretty depressing way to describe yourself. Anyway, let's start by assuming that you started a farm and that you're looking for where to put your money and time. Now, as always, I do not have a monopoly on all the good advice or good experience, so please add your 2 cents in the comments section. All right. So, areas worth investing. To me, one of the most important places to start with investing is in fertility. Taking your time to build your gardens is important, of course, but assuming you have already done that and watched this video here, investing in high quality fertilizing compost to amend your soil can be the difference between success and nah. Sure, taking a good soil test and having your soil dialed in by an agronomist is a fine approach, but good compost will get you 90% of the way there. On the fertility side, another thing that has long-lasting soil benefits that is worthy of investment is mulch. Obviously, a compost mulch is the easiest one to work with in terms of planting, but mulches depend a lot on what you're growing. Make sure to watch our mulch video for a breakdown of that if you're new to the mulch game or this channel. But mulch will help profoundly with water management. So especially if you're in a dry climate or a climate that randomly thinks it's dry for 2 or so months at a time, then a mulch may even be more important for you to save money on water or make what water you do have last longer. Water too is a worthy place of investment. We hope to do an irrigation breakdown at some point this year, but to be perfectly honest, I'm probably not the one to do it. I did not learn to grow food with irrigation when I was an apprentice for 2 years. We did all dry farming, and we use very little irrigation on our farm now, which, yes, sometimes is really a dumb reality. But that means my irrigation knowledge is just not going to be super helpful. But we will find someone to really advise you on that, because that'll be helpful, and also that's just like what we do. The drier the climate that you're in, the more important water becomes, and oftentimes the more expensive. So it's not just about investing in good delivery systems or wells or ponds or whatever, but it's about investing in ways to retain the water once it's in the soil, which again gives us a little extra incentive to pay good attention to that fertility and mulch investment. Another perhaps easy to overlook area of good investment is in your market booth. For those doing farmers markets, a good display could be the difference between who buys and who doesn't. And I don't love being certified organic. Like, I just find that the application and audit process is largely built to cater to corn and soybean growers who grow and harvest 1 crop per season. But when we were doing the farmers market, for me, organic certification was an absolutely essential investment. Argue with the idea of organic as a label all you want, and I will largely join in. But as a marketing tool, that certification is absolutely unrivaled. It's a huge and instantaneous customer base as soon as you hang that organic sign up. Now, if I'm not doing a farmer's market, I'm probably not bothering, but that just depends on your customer base. Some retailers, for instance, may only want to buy from you if you're certified organic. Chefs, they don't often care about the certification as much as they do about the quality and consistency of the produce, and they prefer you don't spray it with something. Almost everybody watching this channel probably avoids that anyway. The last area is probably the biggest bang for the buck area to put your money into, and that's season extension. This term, season extension, mostly encompasses stuff that helps protect crops from the cold, but can also include things like shade cloth that protects stuff from anti-cold heat. Did you make that up? But that doesn't just mean large high tunnels like this one from Rimmel, or the smaller Farmer's Friend cat tunnels that Rimmel also helped us convert into more permanent tunnels. That term, season extension, also refers to things like row cover and wire for hoops or metal conduit for larger hoops to suspend the row cover over. Not to end that sentence with a preposition, but using season extension well can bring you both earlier crops like tomatoes or peppers, and without a doubt being early to market with a desired crop can be a huge leg up in this business. So not only can it do that, but it can also bring you a summer crop later in the fall and even winter. Or in the case of shade cloth, you can extend the lettuce season right through the summer when used well, Or perhaps for those of you in areas like Texas or Alabama or Arizona or places equally as intensely anti-cold, something like shade houses or shade cloth or trees can help extend the winter growing season a bit into the summer months. There are limitations to how much you can cool something without using an energy source, but even keeping a crop around for a few extra weeks longer than you normally would could equate to several $1,000s depending on the crop, the market, etc. There's a grant for basically a free high tunnel through the NRCS, which I will link in the show notes, but even if you have to buy the tunnel yourself, or you start with a cat tunnel, the production potential of a covered space like that is huge as long as you use it well. Hey, hi, so I want to add a couple areas to invest that I realized in the editing process that I didn't want to miss. One important area of investment is just education. Invest in going to local conferences and going to local seminars and visiting farms for no other reason than to network and learn local solutions to common growing problems. For instance, I went to the Organic Association of Kentucky conference a couple years back, and they did a workshop on tomato grafting. Without that workshop and being able to see it done in person, I don't think I would have ever tried it. But now, this year has been kind of wild because as part of my ongoing grafting trials, I planted my tomatoes near where I knew for a fact there was blight last year, and the grafted tomatoes continue to jam while the ungrafted tomatoes all went down early to leaf blight. And leaf blight isn't even something grafting is supposed to really manage. So that's been interesting. But again, I would not have even tried it had it not been for investing in my education. Speaking of education, if you appreciate this channel, pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook. It's like two birds with one stone, but please don't throw stones at birds. I don't really know why that's a phrase. I love birds. Anyway, no-tillgrowers.com supports this work. Also invest in things that boost local ecology. Loads of flowering plants and trees and shrubs, loads of habitat like birdhouses, dig a small pond or 10. The more ecological habitat, the safer your plants will be. Also, I should say that I did a whole post a while back at our forum on the real cost of starting a farm if you want to check that out for further insight on these things. All right, back to younger, more naive, but also maybe more handsome, me? I'll let you be the judge. It's 6:30 in the morning. Either time. All right, so how about some areas to be cautious about investing? One enormous place to be cautious with investing is tools, just stuff. It is really common and not entirely unreasonable that when people get into a new industry or field, did I mean that pun? They want to buy the best and the biggest and the fanciest tools right off the bat. You see this a lot in fields like photography and videography, right? Where someone who wants to get into photography will spend $10,000 on equipment before developing an understanding of how aperture works, or for that matter, what kind of things they're interested in photographying. That's right, that one's right. Photographers will often say that the best camera is the one that you have. And if you know the fundamentals, you can turn basically any camera into a good one. That same rule applies to farming. Learn the fundamentals of farming before investing in the fancy seeders or wheel hoe or whatever tool comes across your Instagram feed. It is the farmer, not the tool, that makes the success. That's a terrible one. It is the farmer, not the tool, that's going to make you successful. Start with a simple list, like a stirrup hoe, a wheelbarrow, a shovel, a rake, a trowel, a 6-pack of beer, and some ways to sow and start seeds. Not to sound like the Simpsons of farming channels here, but there is a video for almost all of that here on our channel. Anyway, start small on the tool list, and once you grow for a while and see what you need, research tools that may help you accomplish what you know you can grow and sell a little bit faster, a little bit more efficiently. Like, for instance, do I love the Jang seeder? Absolutely. But if I was just growing head lettuce and cherry tomatoes primarily and not seeding stuff every single week, then that $700-ish tool may not be necessary for me. I know great growers like Daniel Mays, who I think still just uses his Earthway, and it works fine for him. So, not a necessity for him, may not be a necessity for you. There are lots of tools like that. But you won't know what you need until you've fully been in a market for at least a season and seen where the demand is that you could meet with a more precise tool like that, or a pinpoint seeder, or the paper pot transplanter, or whatever it is. These can be great tools, for sure, but you don't need a great tool that just collects dust in your shed. Another place to be cautious about investing is in the hype. So like every year there's a new microbial inoculant or biostimulant or whatever. And I'm not saying these won't do anything for your production or your soil. And I'm not saying they will harm your soil or your production. But I am saying I've been at this for quite a long time now, and I've seen a lot of shiny new soil amending objects come and go. And the list of ones that have stuck around consists of basically like fish hydrolysate, like that one, and compost, and maybe biochar. Occasionally, something like activated biochar comes on the scene and actually seems to have good long-term soil benefits, according to the research and, well, indigenous knowledge. But for every activated biochar, there are 10 or 20 other miraculous microbes that just kind of fizzle out and disappear. So it's fine to try some of these things, but add up the costs and ask yourself if you could, for roughly that same amount of money, just invest in some sort of compost system or better compost from a producer. Last thing I'll say in this category of places to be cautious about investing is a big farm van. I always recommend folks start with something like a Honda Odyssey or like a Toyota Sienna or just a small minivan and work their way up from there. We figured out we could pack around $2,000 worth of produce and our market stuff into our Odyssey, which for our markets was plenty, and those things can often run for over 200,000 miles before needing a new transmission. So unless you know for a fact that you are going to need a large van, don't start there. Start with something like a minivan and work your way up as you start running out of space. It's always easier to scale up than scale down, especially with something like a vehicle that has almost no resale value, because that's fun. Last, areas to avoid investing, at least in the early years. More land is the big one. Are you maximizing the space that you have? If so, you may need more land, but if not, more land is just more problems spread further apart. And more steps and more travel equals less money and less attention to quality. Maybe you just don't need your own land at all. I've said it before, but nothing will gobble up your startup capital like land ownership. It's a romantic idea. We bought this farm. It is exceedingly expensive, and it holds us back quite a bit. Yes, leases can suck, but as long as the lease and expectations are clearly defined and in contract form, you are protected and you can better save money for eventual retirement, which is nice. As much as I love him, don't use people like the great Elliot Coleman as your barometer. Most people will not be able to market garden into their 80s. Instead, consider taking some of that land ownership expense and turn it into retirement or college savings for your kids or just experiences with your family. Heck, get some friends together and start a collaborative farm instead of a sole proprietorship so that that expense is spread out through a bunch of people. I get the idyllic notion of a family farm, but there's no guarantee your kids will want to do what you want to do, and if you force them to farm, they almost certainly won't want to. So my advice would be that instead of killing yourself to make a family farm, create a farm in a way that makes it a fun place for your family to be and allows you the time to spend with your kids, or your friends, or your family, or whatever relationships are important to you. I just don't want anyone to get to be 50 or 60 or 70 years old with 2 or 3 kids who are doing something entirely different from farming and realize that they didn't have to work until dark and miss all that time with their kids and with their family when they were younger. Other farm models exist, especially if you invest thoughtfully and plan well and observe well. Then you can buy a small farmhouse with a nice yard to retire and have space for your grandkids, or soccer fields, orchards, whatever. Anyway, that's it for now. Put your 2 cents in the comments section. Like this video if you like this video. If you're not subscribed to this channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, you're awesome. Support our work by picking up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or other merch from no-tillgrowers.com. You can't get this hat anymore. It's vintage, NTG. Shout out to anybody that got the red and blue. We'll try and get some new hats in soon. Become a Patreon member at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers. That is where the suggestion for this particular video derived. Or just hit that super thanks button. That works too. Otherwise, super thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye. Kitty. This is what I have to put up with. She was literally rubbing my leg the entire video. Aren't you? You were, because you're hungry. Is it breakfast time? You ready?